Dong-yun pushed his cleaning cart down the long metal hallway of Galactic Research Station Nexus 7. The wheels made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. He had been doing this same job for 3 years now. Every alien on the station knew his face, but none of them really saw him. To them, he was just the human janitor who cleaned their labs and emptied their trash. The station was huge. It floated in space near a star system that 7 different alien races wanted to control. Scientists from all these races worked here together. They shared research and technology. At least that was what they told everyone. Dong-yun knew better. He had learned to listen when people thought no one was paying attention. Commander Vextal walked past him in the hallway. The insect-like alien had 4 arms and eyes that looked like black mirrors. Vextal never spoke to Dong-yun directly. None of the important aliens did. They talked around him and over him like he was furniture that could move. Dong-yun stopped at Laboratory 7. He knocked on the door and waited. Dr. Quinara opened it. The crystalline being sparkled under the bright lights. Her body was made of what looked like living diamond. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. "Oh, it is cleaning time already," she said. "Please be careful around the quantum processors. They are very sensitive today." Dong-yun nodded and smiled. "I will be extra careful, Doctor. Same as always." He pushed his cart into the lab. Dr. Quinara went back to her work. She was studying data on several floating screens. The symbols and numbers meant nothing to most humans, but Dong-yun could read them. He had learned 7 different alien languages during his real training. His real job. The job nobody here knew about. As he cleaned the lab equipment, Dong-yun listened to Dr. Quinara talk to her assistant. The assistant was a young reptilian named Belron. He had green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. The security? "Breaches are getting worse," Dr. Quinara said. "Someone has been accessing files they should not see." "Do we know who it is?" Belron asked. "Security Chief Mordash thinks it might be industrial spies. Other companies trying to steal our research. But I think it is something else. The pattern is too random, too careful." Dong-yun continued cleaning, but his mind was recording every word. He had been the one accessing those files, but he had been very careful to make it look random, like someone who did not know what they were looking for. After finishing the lab, he moved to the next area. The Central Command Center was always busy. Aliens from different species worked at control stations. The air recycling system hummed overhead. Dong-yun had installed listening devices in that system months ago. Nobody ever looked up there. Commander. Vextal was meeting with Security Chief Mordash near the main display screen. Mordash was a large reptilian with dark red scales and sharp teeth. His species came from a warlike planet. They were natural soldiers and guards. "Show me the access logs again," Vextal said. Mordash touched a control panel. Data appeared on the screen. "Someone accessed the weapons research files last week, then the communication systems 3 days ago. Yesterday they looked at personnel records. Any pattern in the timing?" "No, sir. It happens during different shifts, different days. Whoever is doing this knows our schedules very well." Dong-yun emptied a trash container near their station. Neither alien paid attention to him. He was just part of the background, the invisible human who kept their station clean. "Double the security on all restricted areas," Vextal ordered. "I want guards at every access point." "Yes, sir. Should we restrict human access? Why would we do that? The humans here are just maintenance workers and low-level technicians. None of them have clearance for sensitive areas." Dong-yun almost smiled at that. If only they knew. He had clearance for everything on this station. He had earned it the hard way, by being patient, by being invisible, by making them trust him completely. He moved to the detention level next. This area was supposed to be secret, but Dong-yun had found it during his 2nd month on the station. The aliens kept prisoners here. Most of them were captured soldiers from border conflicts, but recently they had brought in someone special, someone Dong-yun needed to see. The guard at the detention entrance was a gaseous being called Yira. Her species could change between solid and gas forms. In her solid form, she looked like a tall blue humanoid. In gas form, she could slip through small spaces. "Hello, Dong-yun," Yira said. "Here to clean the detention area." "Yes." Same schedule as always. Tuesday and Friday mornings, Yira checked her. Tablet. Go ahead. But stay away from cell block C. We have a dangerous prisoner there. Dongyun nodded. Understood. I will stick to the common areas and guard stations. He pushed his cart through the security door. Cell block C was exactly where he wanted to go, but he had to be careful. He cleaned the main corridor first, then the guard break room, then the interrogation chambers. He worked slowly and methodically. Just like every other day, when the guards changed shifts at noon, he made his move. The new guards always took 10 minutes to review the security logs. Dongyun used those 10 minutes to slip into cell block C. The prisoner in the isolation cell was exactly who he expected. Agent Kim Hyejin sat on a metal bench. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her face showed signs of questioning, the kind of questioning that left marks. She looked up when she heard his cart. For just a moment, her eyes widened. Then she controlled her expression. She was well trained. Even after torture, she did not give away his identity. Just cleaning. Miss, Dongyun said in a normal voice, do not mind me. But as he cleaned near her cell, he whispered very quietly. Thursday night. 3rd maintenance tunnel. Be ready. Hyejin did not respond. She just stared at the wall. But Dongyun saw her fingers tap once against her leg. Message received. He finished cleaning and left cell block C before the guards noticed anything. As he worked his way back through the station, he thought about what he had learned. The aliens were getting suspicious about the security breaches. They were increasing patrols, and they had captured one of his former partners. 3 years ago, Dongyun had been Agent Kang Dongyun of Earth's Specter protocol, elite operatives trained for deep cover missions, the kind of missions that took years to complete, the kind where agents often had to disappear completely. His last official mission had been to infiltrate Kepler Station, but something had gone wrong. His cover was blown, his team was killed, the mission failed. Earth Command listed him as killed in action. They held a memorial service. They put his name on the wall of heroes, but Dongyun had survived. He had escaped in a maintenance pod and drifted in space for days before a transport ship found him. The captain was a smuggler who asked no questions. Dongyun paid him to drop him off at the nearest civilian station. From there, he had built a new identity. Kang Dongyun, the secret agent, was dead. Now he was just Dongyun the janitor, a simple man who cleaned floors and emptied trash. A man nobody would suspect of anything important, except being a janitor on an alien research station was the perfect cover for a spy. He had access to every room, every lab, every office. He could install listening devices during routine maintenance. He could copy files while cleaning computer terminals. He could watch and learn and wait. And now, after 3 years of watching, he had discovered something terrible. Project Nullwave, a weapon designed to shut down human brains across entire planets. The aliens were planning to use it against Earth. Dongyun finished his shift and returned to his small quarters in the human section of the station. 23 humans lived and worked on Nexus 7. Most were engineers and technicians. A few were cooks and maintenance workers like him. None of them knew his real identity. He sat on his narrow bed and thought about his options. Earth Command thought he was dead. Even if he could contact them, they might not believe him. And there was no way to get a message past the station's communication blocks anyway. No, this was a job for a ghost, someone who was already dead according to official records. Someone who could move through the shadows and strike when the enemy least expected it. Dongyun had spent 3 years becoming invisible. Now it was time to become visible again. But first he needed to save Hyejin. She was the only other person on this station who might be able to help him stop Project Nullwave. He opened a hidden panel in his wall and pulled out a small device. It looked like a standard maintenance scanner, but it was much more than that. Tomorrow he would begin the real mission, the one that might save Earth or get them both killed. Outside his window, the stars shined cold and distant. Somewhere among them was his home planet. Billions of humans who had no idea what was coming for them, unless one invisible janitor could find a way to stop it. The next morning, Dongyun started his routine exactly as he had for 3 years. He woke at 0600 station time. He showered and dressed in his gray maintenance uniform. He ate breakfast in the human cafeteria with the other workers. Nobody spoke much during breakfast. They were all too tired or too worried about their jobs. At 700, he collected his cleaning cart from the storage bay. The cart looked ordinary, but Dong-yun had made many changes to it over the years. Hidden compartments held tools that no janitor should have. The scanner that looked like cleaning supplies could hack into any computer system on the station. The spray bottles contained more than just cleaning fluid. His first stop was always the main laboratory complex. Dr. Yira was there early as usual. The amphibian scientist could breathe both air and water. Her skin was smooth and green with darker spots. She had been working on the station longer than Dong-yun. She trusted him more than most aliens did. "Good morning, Dong-yun," she said. "How are you feeling today?" "Very good, Dr. Yira. Ready for another day of keeping this place clean." She smiled. Her species showed emotion differently than humans, but Dong-yun had learned to read their expressions. Dr. Yira genuinely liked him. She often talked to him about her work while he cleaned. She thought she was just being friendly. She had no idea she was giving him valuable intelligence. Today she was excited about something. She worked at a lab station that projected images in the air. The images showed brain scans, human brain scans. "We made a breakthrough yesterday," she told him. "The neural mapping is finally complete. We can now target specific brain functions with electromagnetic pulses." Dong-yun continued cleaning while she talked. His hands moved automatically, but his mind was recording every detail. This was it. This was Project Nullwave. "That sounds very advanced," he said. "What kind of medical treatments will this help with?" "Oh, this is not for medical use. This is for military applications. We can disable enemy soldiers without killing them." Very humane compared to traditional weapons. Dong-yun knew she was lying, not to him specifically. Dr. Yira probably believed what she was saying, but the real purpose of Nullwave was much darker. He had seen the classified files. The weapon was designed to target civilian populations, to make entire planets surrender without a fight. He finished cleaning her lab and moved to the next area. Technician Belrin was working in the communications center. The gaseous being was in his solid form today. His body looked like blue smoke given shape. When he moved quickly, he became slightly transparent. "Morning, Belron," Dong-yun said. "Busy day." "Always busy. The communication arrays need constant adjustment. All these different species trying to talk to their homeworlds. Sometimes the signals interfere with each other." Dong-yun cleaned the communication panels while Belron worked. He had installed monitoring devices in this equipment months ago. Every message that went through this center was recorded. He knew about supply requests and personnel transfers before the station commanders did. But lately, there had been a new type of message. Coded transmissions to military headquarters. Messages about timeline acceleration and deployment readiness. Project Nullwave was moving faster than originally planned. As he worked, Dong-yun thought about his past. Before he became a janitor, he had been one of Earth's most elite agents. Specter Protocol was a secret program that trained operatives for impossible missions. They learned to blend into alien societies, to speak their languages and understand their cultures, to become invisible until the moment they struck. The training had been brutal. 2 years of physical conditioning and mental preparation, learning to resist torture and interrogation, studying alien psychology and biology, memorizing the layouts of hundreds of space stations and ships. Only 50 candidates started the program. Only 12 graduated. Dong-yun had finished second in his class. His first mission was to infiltrate a pirate base in the Outer Rim. He spent 6 months as a mechanic before he found their weapon stockpiles. One night he destroyed their entire fleet and escaped in the confusion. The pirates never knew what hit them. His second mission was more complex. A mining corporation was secretly building warships. Dong-yun got a job as an accountant and spent 8 months documenting their illegal activities. When Earth forces finally raided the operation, they had complete evidence of every crime committed. But his third mission went wrong. Kepler Station was supposed to be a simple intelligence-gathering operation. Get in. Learn what the aliens were. Planning. Get out. Instead, he walked into a trap. Someone had betrayed the mission. Half his team died in the first hour. The others were captured and tortured. Dong-yun only survived because he was in the maintenance tunnels when the trap was sprung. He watched his partner, Agent Park Soo-jin, die on the security monitors. He heard his commander, Agent Lee Ji-soo, screaming in an interrogation room. There was nothing he could do to save them. so he ran. He destroyed his identification and equipment. He found a way off the station and disappeared into the smuggler networks that connected the galaxy. For months, he drifted from port to port, living day by day, trying to forget what he had seen. Then he heard about job openings on Nexus 7, a research station that needed human workers. It seemed like a quiet place to hide, a place where he could disappear completely and never be found. He never planned to become a spy again. He just wanted to clean floors and be left alone. But old habits were hard to break. He started noticing things, listening to conversations, watching security procedures. Before long, he realized this station was not what it seemed. The aliens were not just doing research here. They were planning something that threatened Earth and every human colony. His conscience would not let him ignore it. Even if Kang Dong-yun, the agent, was officially dead. Now, as he pushed his cart through the station corridors, he thought about Agent Kim Hye-jin. She had been on his team during the Kepler station mission, but she was assigned to a different section when everything went wrong. He thought she had escaped like he did. Instead, she had been captured 3 weeks ago during another mission. The aliens were holding her in the detention center. They were questioning her about Earth's defenses, about Specter protocol, about him. But Hye-jin was well trained. She would not break easily. Still, he had to get her out before they tried more extreme methods. His shift continued through the morning. He cleaned the officer quarters and the recreation areas. He emptied trash in the command center and the security office. Everywhere he went, he was invisible. Just another piece of equipment that kept the station running. At lunch, he sat with the other human workers. They talked about sports scores from Earth and complained about the alien food in the cafeteria. Normal conversation between normal people. None of them suspected that the quiet janitor at the end of the table was planning to destroy the entire station. After lunch, he had to clean the restricted laboratories. This required special clearance that had taken him 6 months to earn. The aliens had tested his background thoroughly. They found exactly what he wanted them to find: a boring maintenance worker with no criminal record and no political interests. The restricted labs were where the real work happened. Advanced weapons research, alien technology that Earth scientists could only dream about, and Project Nullwave. The main Nullwave laboratory was guarded by Security Chief Mordash himself today. The large reptilian watched Dong-yun carefully as he entered. Mordash was suspicious by nature. His species had evolved on a dangerous planet where paranoia kept you alive. "You have 15 minutes, Mordash said. "Do not touch anything except the floors and waste containers." "Understood, sir. Standard cleaning protocol only." Inside the lab, Dong-yun saw the weapon prototype for the first time. It looked like a metallic sphere covered in strange symbols. Cables connected it to powerful computers and monitoring equipment. This device could shut down every human brain on a planet from orbit. Dr. Quinara was running tests on the prototype. She spoke to her assistants about frequency modulation and neural pathway mapping. Technical terms that sounded impressive, but were really describing mass murder. As he cleaned around the equipment, Dong-hyun memorized everything he saw: the control panels, the power connections, the security locks. He would need this information later when he came back to destroy it. But destroying the prototype would not be enough. The aliens had backup data and could rebuild the weapon in weeks. He needed to find the main computers where all the research was stored. And he needed to rescue Hye-jin before they broke her. His hidden scanner quietly copied files from the lab computers while he worked. Terabytes of data that would take weeks to analyze properly, but Dong-yun was looking for specific information: security schedules, personnel files, anything that would help him plan his real mission. When he finished cleaning the lab security, Chief Mordash escorted him out personally. "You took exactly 14 minutes and 30 seconds, Mordash said. "Very efficient." "I try to be respectful of your time, sir." "Good. Efficiency is important. Waste is not tolerated on this station." If only Mordash knew how efficiently Dong-yun was planning to destroy everything he valued. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. Dong-yun cleaned offices and storage areas. He maintained air filters and checked waste disposal systems. Normal work for a normal janitor. Admiral Zeftos arrived on the station the next morning. The massive alien commander stood nearly 3 meters tall with 4 powerful arms and skin like polished metal. His species ruled one of the largest military fleets in the galaxy. When Zeftos spoke, every other alien listened. Dongyun watched through the observation windows as the Admiral's shuttle docked. This was not a scheduled visit. Something important was happening, something that required the highest level of military authority. During his morning cleaning rounds, Dongyun noticed increased security everywhere. More guards at checkpoint stations, additional patrols in the corridors, electronic scanners that had been installed overnight. The station felt different, tense, ready for something. He started his work in the command center where Admiral Zeftos was meeting with the senior staff. Commander Vextal looked nervous as he gave his report. Dr. Quinara stood beside a holographic display showing technical data. Security Chief Mordash had positioned guards at every entrance. Project Nullwave is ahead of schedule, Admiral Zeftos said. His voice sounded like grinding metal. High Command wants deployment within 72 hours. Sir, that is very aggressive, Dr. Quinara said. We still need to complete final testing protocols. Testing is a luxury we cannot afford. Human intelligence agencies are getting suspicious. Our sources report increased activity around Earth's outer colonies. Dongyun continued cleaning, but his blood ran cold. The aliens knew something. Not about him specifically, but about Earth's defensive preparations. Time was running out faster than he had planned. What about the human prisoner? Commander Vextal asked. She has not provided useful information yet. Continue the interrogation, but do not delay deployment for her. We have enough data from other sources to proceed. Security Chief Mordash stepped forward. Sir, I recommend increasing security during the final phase. There have been unexplained system anomalies over the past month. What kind of anomalies? Small things, equipment failures, communication glitches, data corruption in non-critical systems. Nothing serious individually, but the pattern concerns me. Admiral Zeftos turned his massive head toward Mordash. You think we have a saboteur? It is possible, sir. Someone with technical knowledge and unrestricted access to station systems, Dongyun forced himself to keep cleaning normally. He had been very careful with his sabotage operations. Always small problems that could be explained by normal equipment wear. Never anything dramatic enough to trigger a security investigation. But Mordash was more observant than he had expected. Double all security protocols, Admiral Zeftos ordered. Institute random searches of all personnel. I want every human on this station questioned about their activities. Yes, sir. Should we restrict access to sensitive areas? No. That would disrupt our timeline. But monitor everyone more closely. If there is a saboteur, they will reveal themselves when we begin final preparations. The meeting ended, and the senior staff dispersed to their duties. Dongyun finished cleaning and moved to his next assignment. But his mind was racing. The security increase would make his planned rescue much more difficult, and questioning all the humans might expose his false identity. He needed to accelerate his own timeline. Tonight he would rescue Hyejin. Tomorrow he would begin destroying the Nullwave project. There would be no time for careful preparation or gradual sabotage. It would have to be fast and decisive. During lunch he sat with the other human workers, as usual. But the conversation was different today. Worried. Several of them had already been called for security interviews. Questions about their backgrounds and daily activities. The aliens were being thorough. They asked me about my maintenance logs for the past month, said Jinho, who worked in the engine room. Wanted to know if I had noticed anything unusual. Here, said Minji from the communications section. They seemed very interested in any unexplained equipment problems. Dongyun nodded sympathetically, but said little. His turn for questioning would come soon. He had prepared false documents and cover stories years ago, but under intense scrutiny, even the best false identity could crack. After lunch, he reported to the detention level for his regular cleaning shift. But today was different. Additional guards were posted at every entrance, security scanners checked, his cart more thoroughly than usual. The atmosphere was tense and suspicious. Guard Captain Nexroth was waiting for him at the main security station. The insectoid alien had multiple eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. His species was known for paranoia and attention to detail. Janitor Dongyun, Nexroth said. You have been cleaning this section for how long? 3 years, sir. Every Tuesday and Friday morning. Same schedule. And in that time, have you noticed? Anything unusual? Any security violations or suspicious behavior? No, sir. I just clean the areas I am assigned to. I try not to pay attention to anything else. Nexroth studied him carefully. The prisoner in cell block C. Have you seen her? I have seen that someone is being held there, but I do not look closely. It is not my business. Good. That prisoner is very dangerous. A trained agent who could kill you with her bare hands. Stay away from her cell. I understand, sir. I will be extra careful. Nexroth waved him through the checkpoint, but Dongyun noticed additional cameras had been installed in the corridors. His usual blind spots were covered now. Getting to Hyejin would be much more difficult. He began his cleaning routine but moved more carefully than usual. Every movement was being recorded and analyzed. Any deviation from his normal pattern would trigger alerts. He had to appear completely routine while planning the most dangerous operation of his life. The guard rotation happened exactly on schedule at 1400 hours. But instead of the usual 10-minute gap, there were now guards staying behind to brief their replacements. The window of opportunity had shrunk to less than 3 minutes. Dongyun waited until the afternoon shift settled into their routines. Then, he made his move. Instead of going to the supply closet, he turned toward cell block C. His heart raced, but his movements remained calm and professional. The corridor to the high-security cells was empty for exactly 90 seconds. Dongyun reached Hyejin's cell and knelt beside his cart. From a hidden compartment, he pulled out a device that looked like a cleaning scanner but was actually an electronic lockpick. Hyejin, he whispered. Are you ready? She was sitting on her bench exactly as before. But when she heard his voice, she looked up. Her face was worse than 3 days ago. Fresh bruises and cuts showed that the interrogations were getting more intense. Dongyun, she whispered back. I knew you were alive. When they captured me, I hoped you might be here. Can you walk? Yes. They have not broken any bones yet. But we need to move fast. They are planning something called final extraction tomorrow. Dongyun's blood chilled. Final extraction meant torture that would leave the prisoner dead or permanently damaged. He had maybe 12 hours before they destroyed her mind. Tonight during the shift change, he said. Third maintenance tunnel like I told you. Can you get out of your cell? The lock is biometric. I cannot bypass it without tools. Dongyun quickly attached his device to the cell lock. The scanner analyzed the electronic signature and began generating bypass codes. But it would take several minutes to crack the encryption. Footsteps echoed in the main corridor. The guards were returning from their break early. Dongyun yanked his device free and pretended to clean the floor. The lock remained sealed, but now he had partial access codes. Guard Captain Nexroth appeared around the corner with 2 soldiers. They were making an unscheduled patrol. Dongyun continued cleaning as they approached. What are you doing here? Nexroth demanded. Cleaning, sir. There was a spill from the waste recycling system. Maintenance requested immediate cleanup. Nexroth checked his tablet. I have no record of this request. It came through about 20 minutes ago. Emergency priority. I can show you the work order. Dongyun pulled out a fabricated document from his cart. The forgery was perfect. Nexroth studied it carefully but found nothing suspicious. Complete your work and leave immediately, Nexroth ordered. This area is restricted during security enhancement. Yes, sir. Almost finished, Dongyun cleaned for another few minutes, then left cell block C. But as he walked away, he activated a small device hidden in his cart. The device would finish cracking the cell lock remotely. By tonight, Hyejin's door would open with a simple push. The rest of his shift passed without incident. But Dongyun noticed that he was being watched more carefully than before. Security. Cameras tracked his movements. Guards appeared in corridors just after he passed through. Someone was definitely suspicious of him. During dinner, he sat alone and reviewed his plans. The rescue had to happen tonight. The station security was only going to get tighter, and if the aliens really planned to deploy Nullwave in 72 hours, he was almost out of time. After dinner, he returned to his quarters. But instead of resting, he began final preparations. From hidden compartments throughout his room, he gathered equipment that no janitor should possess, weapons, explosives, electronic warfare tools, the arsenal of a Specter protocol agent. He also retrieved a small communication device that he had never used. It was designed to send a single-burst transmission to Earth Command, a final message that could only be sent once before the device destroyed itself. He had been saving it for an emergency. Dong-Yun moved through the maintenance tunnels at exactly 2,347 hours. The narrow passages ran between the station's main decks like a hidden highway. Only maintenance workers knew these routes. Most aliens were too large to fit through them anyway. He had memorized every tunnel and junction during his 3 years on the station. Tonight, that knowledge would save his life. And hopefully Hyejin's life, too. The station operated on a reduced crew during night shift. Fewer guards in the corridors, longer gaps between patrols. But Admiral Zeftos had ordered increased security. Random checks were happening every few minutes instead of every hour. Dong-Yun reached Junction Point 7 and stopped. Through a ventilation grate, he could see into Cell Block C. 2 guards stood outside Hyejin's cell. They were not supposed to be there. The schedule showed this area should be empty during shift change. He waited 15 minutes, but the guards did not move. Something had changed. Either they suspected his rescue plan or they were preparing for the final extraction Hyejin had mentioned. Either way, he could not wait any longer. From his equipment pack, Dong-Yun pulled out a small device that looked like a maintenance tool. Actually, it was a sonic disruptor designed to scramble alien nervous systems temporarily. It would knock out most species for several minutes without permanent damage. He crawled through the ventilation shaft until he was directly above the guards. Then he dropped the device through the grate. It landed silently on the floor between them. The disruptor activated with a high-pitched whine that human ears could barely hear, but alien ears were more sensitive. Both guards collapsed immediately. They would wake up in 20 minutes with bad headaches and no memory of what happened. Dong-Yun dropped down from the ventilation shaft and moved quickly to Hyejin's cell. The electronic lock showed green. His remote hacking device had worked perfectly. The door opened with a soft click. Hyejin was waiting just inside the cell. She had torn strips from her prison uniform to make basic bandages. Her injuries looked painful, but she could move normally. "I wondered when you would come," she said quietly. "Can you travel through maintenance tunnels?" "I will have to. What is the plan?" "First we get off this level. Then we need to reach the main computer core. I have to destroy all the null-wave research data." "What about the weapon prototype?" "That too. But the data is more important. They can rebuild the prototype, but not the research if we wipe it completely." They climbed up into the ventilation shaft together. Moving through the narrow space was difficult for Hyejin in her weakened condition. But she was a trained agent. She pushed through the pain without complaint. Behind them, alarms began to sound. Not full station alerts, just security warnings. On the detention level, someone had discovered the unconscious guards. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they search the whole station," Dong-Yun said. "Then we better move fast." They crawled through Junction Point 12 and down toward the engineering decks. This route would take them close to the main computer core, but it also passed through heavily monitored areas. As they moved, Dong-Yun told Hyejin what he had learned about Project Nullwave. The timeline, the deployment plans, the weapons capabilities. Her face grew darker with each detail. "They tested it on me," she said. "Low power settings, just enough to cause severe headaches and memory loss. At full power, it would shut down. Higher brain functions completely, leaving the victims alive but helpless." Exactly. Perfect slaves for whatever the aliens want to do with Earth. They reached the engineering section, but stopped when they heard voices in the corridor below. Security teams were searching every room methodically. The escape had definitely been discovered. "Security Chief Mordash to all units," came over the comm system. "The human prisoner has escaped from Cell Block C. She is extremely dangerous and maybe armed. Use deadly force if necessary." "How long before they search the maintenance areas?" Hyejin asked. "Not long. They will check the obvious routes first, but eventually they will think of the tunnels. Then we need to split up. You go for the computer core. I will create a distraction." "No. We stay together. 2 agents have a better chance than 1. Dong-Yun, listen to me. If we both get caught, the mission fails completely. Earth dies. You have to destroy that data no matter what happens to me." Before he could argue, she was moving. Hyejin dropped down from the ventilation shaft into the corridor below. Immediately, security alarms blared throughout the station. But now the guards would follow her away from the computer core. Dong-yun wanted to help her, but she was right. The mission came first. He continued through the tunnels toward his target. The main computer core was located in the most secure part of the station. Multiple security checkpoints, biometric scanners, armed guards with orders to shoot intruders on site. Getting inside would require all his skills and most of his remaining equipment. He reached the final junction point and looked down through a grate. The computer core entrance was 50 meters away. 2 guards stood at the checkpoint. Both were armed with energy weapons that could cut through metal. Dong-yun pulled out another device from his pack. This one looked like a simple flashlight, but contained a powerful electromagnetic pulse generator. One blast would disable all electronic systems in the area for several minutes, including lights and security cameras, but it would also disable his own equipment. He would have to work in complete darkness using only mechanical tools. He aimed the EMP device at the corridor below and activated it. Every light went out instantly. Emergency power kicked in after 30 seconds, but that gave him enough time to drop down and reach the computer core entrance. The guards were shouting in confusion and calling for backup, but their weapons were dead, and they could not see in the darkness. Dong-yun slipped past them like a ghost. The computer core door was sealed with multiple locks, electronic and mechanical, biometric and numeric codes. It would take a skilled technician hours to break through all the security. But Dong-yun was not trying to break through. He was trying to break in. From his pack, he pulled out shaped explosive charges no bigger than coins. Specter protocol agents called them door knockers. They could blast through almost any barrier without damaging what was on the other side. He placed 6 charges around the door frame and set the timer for 10 seconds. Then he moved back and waited. The explosion was surprisingly quiet. Just a soft thump and a puff of smoke. But the massive door fell inward with a crash that echoed through the corridor. Dong-yun rushed into the computer core before the guards could react. The room was filled with processing units that hummed with power. Hundreds of data storage devices holding decades of research, including everything about Project Nullwave. He pulled out his final piece of equipment, a computer virus designed by Earth's best programmers. It would not just delete files, it would corrupt the quantum storage matrices themselves, making data recovery impossible even with advanced alien technology. But first, he had to access the main terminal, and that required another set of security codes. Behind him, the guards were shouting orders and calling for reinforcements. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Security teams were converging on his location. Dong-yun connected his hacking device to the main terminal and began breaking through the access codes, layer after layer of encryption designed to stop exactly this kind of attack. But Specter protocol training included advanced computer infiltration. He had cracked alien systems before. The first security layer fell after 2 minutes. The second took 3 more minutes. But he could hear guards assembling outside the computer core. Soon they would rush in with weapons ready. The third security layer was more complex. Military-grade encryption that adapted to intrusion attempts. His hacking device was working at maximum capacity, but progress was slow. Intruder in the computer core came over the comm system. All security teams respond immediately. Deadly. Force authorized. The fourth layer finally cracked. Dong-yun was into the main database. Thousands of files appeared on the screen. Research data, weapon specifications, deployment schedules. 3 years of work that would let the aliens conquer Earth without firing a shot. He uploaded his virus into the system and watched it spread through the network. File after file disappeared in cascading deletion waves. But the process would take several more minutes to complete. Footsteps stopped outside the computer core entrance. Someone was giving quiet orders. They were preparing to attack. Dong-yun pulled out his only weapon, a simple projectile pistol that fired metal slugs. Primitive compared to alien energy weapons but effective at close range, and it had not been disabled by his EMP blast. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Guards rushed through the main entrance while others came through maintenance hatches in the ceiling and walls. They moved with military precision and overwhelming firepower. Dong-yun took cover behind a processing unit and returned fire. His first shots dropped 2 guards, but more kept coming. Energy beams scorched the air around him. The smell of burned electronics filled the room. He fought with everything he had learned in 20 years of combat training. But there were too many enemies in too small a space. Eventually, they would overwhelm his position. The virus was only 60% complete. He needed more time. From somewhere in the station came the sound of explosions. Yejin was keeping her promise to create a distraction. Security Chief Mordash dragged Dong-Yun through the station corridors in electromagnetic restraints. The metal bands around his wrists and ankles made walking difficult, but not impossible. Other aliens lined the hallways to stare at the human, who had fooled them for 3 years. Kang Dong-Yun, Admiral Zeftos said when they reached the command center. Agent of Earth's Specter protocol, presumed dead for 3 years. Yet here you are, cleaning our floors and stealing our secrets. I prefer custodial engineer, Dong-Yun replied. The pay is better than government work. Admiral Zeftos struck him across the face with one massive hand. The blow sent Dong-Yun to his knees, but he did not cry out. Spectre agents were trained to endure much worse. Your virus destroyed 87% of our research data, Admiral Zeftos continued. 3 years of work, hundreds of scientists, billions of credits in funding. Sorry about that. I was aiming for 100%. Another blow knocked him sideways. This time he tasted blood. Commander Vextal stepped forward. Sir, we still have the core weapon specifications. The prototype is undamaged. We can proceed with deployment, as planned. But without the targeting algorithms and neural mapping data, we cannot achieve planetary coverage, Dr. Quinara said. At best, we could affect major population centers. Rural areas would remain uncontrolled. Then we will rebuild what was lost, Admiral Zeftos decided. Double the research teams. Work around the clock. I want full capability restored within 30 days. What about the other human prisoner? Security Chief Mordash asked. She is still loose somewhere on the station. Find her. Use whatever methods necessary, and execute all other humans on the station immediately. I will not risk any more sabotage. Dong-Yun felt cold rage building in his chest. 20 innocent maintenance workers and technicians were about to die because of his actions. People who had never hurt anyone. People who just wanted to do their jobs and go home to their families. The other humans know nothing about this, he said. They are not agents or spies, just workers trying to survive. Perhaps. But I cannot take that chance. The stakes are too high. Guards moved to escort Dong-Yun to a detention cell. But alarms began sounding throughout the station before they reached the door. Not security alerts. This time, combat warnings. Admiral called a communications officer. Long-range sensors detect incoming ships. Military configuration. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. How many ships? 57 vessels, sir. Earth fleet designation. Admiral. Zeftos turned to stare at Dong-Yun. You sent a message 3 days ago. I told them exactly what you were planning and where to find you. Impossible. All communications are monitored. Nothing leaves this station without authorization. Spectre protocol uses quantum burst transmitters. Undetectable until activated. Untraceable after transmission. Your monitoring systems never saw it. Admiral Zeftos grabbed Dong-Yun by the throat. It does not matter. Your fleet will arrive too late. We will deploy null wave in 4 hours. Earth's colonies will surrender before their ships can attack. Maybe. But you still need to capture the weapon sites around the target planets. That takes time you no longer have. We will make time. But Dong-Yun could see doubt in the Admiral's eyes. The alien commander was calculating odds and timelines in his head. The math was not working in his favor anymore. Sir, Dr. Quinara interrupted. There is another problem. The quantum processors that control null wave require constant calibration. Without the deleted algorithms, we cannot maintain stable output for more than 30 minutes. 30 minutes should be sufficient for planetary bombardment. Not if the targets are spread across multiple star systems. We would need at least 6 hours of continuous operation to affect all major colonies. Admiral Zeftos released Dong-Yun and turned away. The alien commander was finally realizing that his perfect plan was falling apart. Even if they deployed the weapon, it would not achieve the complete victory they needed. Change of plans, Admiral Zeftos announced. We will target Earth directly, disable their government and military command, force an immediate surrender. Sir, that was never tested, Dr. Quinara protested. Earth's electromagnetic field could interfere with the neural targeting frequencies. Then we will test it today. Guards dragged Dongyun toward the detention level, but they had only gone 50 meters when explosions echoed through the station. Not the kind of damage caused by equipment failure. These were military-grade charges placed by someone who knew exactly where to hit. Agent Kim Hyejin to all Earth forces came over the communication system. I have disabled primary power to the null-wave weapon. Beginning systematic destruction of critical systems. Send backup immediately. Security Chief Mordash grabbed his weapon and ran toward the null-wave laboratory. Half the guards on the station followed him. In the confusion, Dongyun saw his chance. The electromagnetic restraints were controlled by a central security system. If that system lost power, the restraints would automatically release to prevent prisoners from being trapped during emergencies. It was a safety feature that most aliens never thought about. But Dongyun had studied every system on the station during his 3 years of invisible observation. He triggered a hidden device sewn into his uniform. A small EMP generator that would disable electronics within 3 meters. The same kind of device he had used to escape before. His restraints fell away as the power failed. Before the guards could react, he was moving. 3 years of cleaning these corridors had taught him every shortcut and hiding place. Behind him, aliens shouted orders and fired energy weapons. But Dongyun was already gone, vanished into the maintenance tunnels that had been his secret highway for so long. He made his way toward the null-wave laboratory. Hyejin would need help destroying the weapon prototype. And he still had unfinished business with the aliens who wanted to enslave his species. The laboratory was in chaos when he arrived. Hyejin had planted explosives throughout the facility. Computer terminals sparked and burned. The weapon prototype sat undamaged in the center of the room, but all its support systems were destroyed. "I thought you were captured," Hyejin said when she saw him. "I was, but aliens never understand human engineering. Their security systems have too many safety features. Can you help me with this thing?" She pointed at the weapon prototype. "It has quantum shielding that my explosives cannot penetrate." Dongyun studied the device. The metallic sphere was covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Energy fields surrounded it like invisible armor. But every piece of technology had weaknesses if you knew where to look. "The shielding draws power from the station's main reactor," he said. "If we overload the power grid, it will fail." "How do we overload the grid?" "Engineering section. Main power. Coupling. We need to trigger a cascade failure that will shut down everything except life support." They fought their way through the station together. Security teams tried to stop them, but 2 Specter agents were more than a match for ordinary guards. Years of training and desperation made them nearly unstoppable. The engineering section was heavily defended, but they had advantages the aliens did not expect. Dongyun knew every maintenance access point. Hyejin had memorized guard rotations during her imprisonment. Together they reached the main power coupling without triggering major alarms. "This will shut down everything," Dongyun warned. "Lights, gravity, life support. We will have maybe 20 minutes before the station becomes unlivable. The Earth fleet will be here in 4 hours. We just need to survive until then. Or die trying. Or die trying." Dongyun placed his remaining explosives around the power coupling. Military-grade charges that would crack the quantum containment fields. When they detonated, the resulting energy release would cascade through every system on the station. 30-second timer, he said. "We need to get to the emergency shelter in Section 7. They ran through corridors that were already darkening as power levels dropped. Behind them, the explosion lit up the engineering section like a miniature sun. Then everything went black. Emergency lighting flickered on throughout the station, but the main power grid was completely dead, and with it the quantum shielding around the null-wave weapon. "Now we finish this," Hyejin said. They made their way back to the laboratory in the dim emergency lighting. The weapon prototype sat unprotected now, just a metallic sphere that could destroy civilizations. Dongyun placed his final explosive charge directly against the device. "This should vaporize the entire quantum matrix. They will never be able to rebuild it." "What about the research data? You could not delete. Without the prototype to test against the data is useless. They would have to start over completely." "Good. I am tired of aliens thinking they can conquer humanity." The explosion that destroyed the null-wave weapon was visible from 3 sectors away. The quantum energies released lit up the station like a supernova for several seconds. When the light faded, nothing remained but melted metal and burned electronics. Admiral Zeftos found them in the ruins of his laboratory. The massive alien. Commander looked older somehow, defeated. His perfect weapon was gone, and Earth's fleet was only 2 hours away. "You have destroyed 3 years of work," he said. "Good," Dong-Yun replied. "Maybe next time you will think twice before threatening innocent people." "There will be no next time. My government will disavow this operation. Blame it on rogue commanders and unauthorized research."